We're live. Welcome everyone to another Ubuntu Community Q&A. My name is Daniel Holbach and I'm here with Pope.
Hello.
And we're going to answer all your questions about Ubuntu and maybe some other questions as well. And if you're watching this through ubuntuonair.com, we have this chat widget below the video feed where you just enter your favorite nickname, hit the connect button, and then you can talk to us. If you have questions, just make sure you prefix them with question in capital letters so we can more easily pick them up. And while you're at it, subscribe and circle and friend all the Ubuntu on Air accounts you can find. That way you stay up to date on all the sessions that happen on Ubuntu on Air. Right.
But last week was a little bit different. We had a whole bunch of Ubuntu Online Summit sessions that went for 3 days from Tuesday to Thursday. And I wanted to, while we wait for people to arrive and think of their amusing, interesting questions, thought I'd maybe mention a couple that might be worth other people going back and looking at, because there was something like 70 sessions, and you have to pick out the good ones. I personally, the ones I'm most interested in going to is the ones that I have less visibility of. I'm going to have a look through the cloudy, servery kind of ones, especially anything related to Snappy or anything like that, because it's not something I'd work with every day. So I want to be able to pick up some knowledge from some of those. But two of the ones that I was in that I found super interesting personally. One was the session about Deco, because that's going to be the default email client in Ubuntu Phone soon. And we talked a little bit about some of the outstanding tasks. And I just wanted to mention it partly because it was really enjoyable to have a chat with Dan, who's the lead developer of Deco, and James, who works on the design team and does a lot of our user interface stuff. I wanted to use this as a way of putting a call out to anyone who's interested in getting involved. Deco is a good way to get involved for a number of reasons. It's a high profile application, so there's a lot of eyeballs on it. A lot of users already using it, so therefore they find a bunch of bugs. It's working on something that has a really good lead developer who's really attentive and responds to your questions. So if you need help, Dan's really good at being there to respond to that. And they've got an IRC channel #Deco on Freenode, and we've got a design team who respond to design questions as well. We regularly catch up with them every week. But also because it's got a number of technologies that might be interesting to a bunch of people. The usual email related stuff like IMAP and SMTP and stuff, but also it touches online accounts. So there's a bit of online account stuff in there, which is interesting to those who want to maybe create their own online accounts, plug in for some other platform. But also the UI is done in QML and there's backend in C++. So there's a lot of different technologies in there that might be interesting to people, especially as email is an app that lots of people use every day. So it could be interesting. And the other one I wanted to mention was we had a kind of design round table with myself, James, and Kevin Fader. And Kevin showed off a couple of the tools that he's got on GitHub for designing applications. And I think it's worth having a look at those because they're really good if you want to create mock-ups of apps for Ubuntu Phone. He's got a nice Inkscape tool that was built on something that another designer, Lucas, had created previously. He's updated it for the new look and feel of Ubuntu Phone, and you can drag and drop all the components into various places and mock up what your screen might look like. It's really good if you're a designer and not a developer to mock up what you want your application to look like. It's really quite cool. And he also had something that I'd not seen before, which was these printout sheets where you open the thing up in Inkscape and then print it out, and you get an A4 or letter size page, which is actual size for the phone. So you can scribble with a old school pen and pencil of what your user interface might look like, or design a game or whatever directly on paper, which I thought was really quite cool as well. So how about yourself, Daniel? Were there any interesting topics that you went to you want to mention?
Sure. Yeah, I basically went to all the Snappy sessions, of course, and it was really interesting. Some of the sessions were more technical nature. For example, we talked about frameworks. So framework snaps are a way how you can like share functionality in a Snappy system with multiple apps. So for example, you would have like a Bluetooth framework or something, or yeah, Bluetooth was one of the examples which came up, and they are very, very close to landing the Bluetooth framework in the store. Next up is going to be a connectivity framework, which is going to be based on Network Manager. So it's really nice to see that more and more of these frameworks find their way into the store. And the great thing is that no matter which device or which VM you're going to be on, all of them are going to benefit from these frameworks. So bring the functionality once to the store, everyone can use them. Just
I was playing with the tutorial, the Snapcraft and Snappy tutorial, and there was a section in there about frameworks, and you do a Snappy install Docker, and Docker, it turns out, is a framework on Snappy. So once you've got the Docker framework on, you can put Docker images on there, and your application is deployed by Docker. I thought that was really quite cool, and that kind of cemented for me what a framework was all about. Actually, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense now. So,
I mean, there was lots of other discussion as well, because like framework is like a big hammer, and like when you're looking at a nail and you have a big hammer, you try to solve it that way. So people were asking, like, can I ship my libraries in a framework? How does it all work? And it was just interesting to see how everyone tried to figure out, how do I make use of this? How is this going to work for me? We had another session which was about a plan for how we can bring the phone and the desktop to a Snappy system. And
oh, really? Oh.
Yeah, so it was Aleku and Kyle Fosari something.
Yeah.
forgot his last name, and they did some analysis. Like, they figured out, like, what are the bits we would need to change and in which order, and how do we get from here to there, which compatibility layer are we going to keep, and so on. And that was also very nice, because the Snappy folks, they were listening and paying attention to what their needs are going to be. So that was nice as well. We had a bunch of
sorry, I was muted for a minute. That's some way off, isn't it? The movement of the phone to Snappy, it's not happening in the short term, is it?
Not in the next few weeks. Yes. Yeah, we had a bunch of demo sessions as well. We had Ted showing off the Catkin plugin. Catkin is the build tool used by the ROS community. What's really nice is that the ROS community, who specialized in building robots and making machines and everything, they're all working with Ubuntu already, so that's very nice already. And yeah, Ted got a lot of feedback how they could how Snapcraft could be more tailored towards all these robot apps which currently exist, and it's going to be nice that we can basically get them very easily into the store.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I look forward to our Snappy-powered robot overlords.
Yes.
Yeah, it's quite cool. It's great because you hear about these things, and the ROS stuff, the robot OS stuff, is completely out of my visibility. I don't. Yeah. Robots are just like not something I get to see, and so when you hear about this development, it's quite exciting, especially when you hear that they're actually using Ubuntu already. It's really quite cool.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. Just thinking about Ubuntu on fridges and drones and elsewhere. Yeah.
It's going to be everywhere.
Yeah, lots of other Snappy stuff. And what was also nice was to see Jane do a Q&A as well.
Mm.
It was brilliant. Yeah, like if you have like lots of time to kill, go to summit.ubuntu.com. All the sessions were recorded, so you can all just have a look at them.
Yeah, actually, I was chatting to a couple of friends on online the other day, and they were saying they like having the videos playing on a second screen while they're working, so you know they can carry on working and just have the video as background noise. You don't have to like constantly pay attention to them, and then when something interesting triggers, you can like rewind and re-listen to that bit. That's quite cool. And yeah, they're all archived, so you can watch them anytime, anywhere on YouTube. If you know of anyone who actually has a problem getting access to them, we'd be happy to make them available via some other means. I know in some places YouTube is blocked or difficult to access, but if there are any specific videos, I'm happy to download them from YouTube and re-upload them somewhere else, because they're all like Creative Commons licensed. We don't restrict redistribution of those videos that are on the Ubuntu on Air or the YouTube developer channels. Just like grab them and reshare them, or someone else can grab them and reshare them if they want. That you don't have to wait for me to do.
Cool.
Should we dive into some questions?
Yes, I think we should. Yeah, I think the first one was from Putin. When Ubuntu phone in Russia? I just looked into my Google Plus feed, and there were at least 2 or 3 people mentioning that it was going to be next week. So
yes. Yeah, there you go. It's 17th of November, I think. And I only know this because I have also seen it on Google Plus. So it's not. Yeah, we don't. That's yeah. I'm seeing, and it's the BQE 5 is launching in Russia in next week. So that's good news, isn't it?
Brilliant. There's a bunch of folks who didn't use question in capital letters in front of their question, but I'm going to pick them up anyway. Any pending agreements with US carriers you're exploring for Ubuntu Phone, Sprint, T-Mobile? Yeah, these are announcements that are very likely going to be done by the carriers themselves. We're doing the software, so I can't announce anything.
Yeah, that question comes up quite a lot, and it was asked last week at UOS, and I think Jane answered that one directly. But yeah, we don't have visibility of that kind of information, but the general feedback is those discussions are ongoing.
Yeah.
Cool.
The question from Salil: how can I contribute to Ubuntu Community? The good news is we devoted an entire website just for this question. If you go to community.ubuntu.com, you should very easily get an insight into various branches of the Ubuntu community and just find out what might interest you and how to get in touch with the folks there. So,
it's funny. We have that what's it, find a task, yep, which is it's a good set of steps questions you can answer to figure out how you could contribute to Ubuntu. But it's bizarre because thinking about it, if you take a step back and look at that find a task, it's a very prescribed set of things that we would like people to contribute in Ubuntu, like documentation, translations, coding, bug triaging. They're the same things we've wanted people to contribute to for 11 years now, and people do contribute in all those areas. But then there are places outside of that you may have skills in, which is not listed on that website. And if you've got a particular skill and you think we might benefit from you doing something, then by all means get in touch and say, hey, I can do this, would you be interested? So don't feel like if it's not listed on the community website, we don't want it. That's not the case. So let me give you a couple of examples. Out of the blue, sometimes we see people creating little promo videos, like 10 seconds, something nicely animated in Blender with a couple of logos and maybe a screenshot or two, and it looks really cool. And most of us who work at Canonical either don't have the skills or don't have the time to learn to get the skills to do it, or we just don't have the creativity and the spark. Whereas someone out there in the community who has the time and the Blender skills to do it, great, knock yourself out, go for it. Or if you're, particularly good at icon design or something, maybe there are community applications that need a new icon designed, or a revamp in some other way. Maybe you're really good with color schemes or something, picking better color schemes for apps, that kind of stuff. So don't feel like community.ubuntu.com is these are the ways you must contribute to Ubuntu and nothing outside this box. You can, we welcome all kinds of contributions, and sometimes we discover people who are contributing to Ubuntu in ways we'd not even thought of were, ways that you could contribute, and we welcome them all. Cool. Okay, what's the next question? What was?
Yeah, a question from Ash0. On the what's new in 15.10 statement, there was Unity 8 preview. I upgraded, yet no Unity 8. Didn't make it to release candidate. You might have to install, what's the package called again?
There is there's a few Unity 8 packages that you can install. There's a Unity 8 session, isn't there? And then there's a couple of others which let you log out and log back in under a Unity 8.
Yeah, I think it's called Unity 8 desktop session or something.
Right. So the fact that the release notes say, well, Daniel goes and finds the name of the package. The fact that the release notes say Unity 8 is available, that might mean it's in the archive. We've packaged it up and we've got it working and it's in the archive and it's available for you to install. We don't necessarily put everything on the CD or on the ISO, or if you upgrade, you don't necessarily get all that extra stuff thrown in because you might not want it. And it takes up disk space, and it's not 100% ready yet, so that's why it's a preview.
Yeah, the package is called Unity 8-desktop-session-mir.
Cool. And some caveats: it doesn't work on every video card, so you're going to have a happier time doing this on an all Intel machine or on an NVIDIA machine where you're using the Nouveau driver, the open source Nouveau driver. I don't think it yet works with the NVIDIA binary driver. I know nothing about AMD. I'm sure someone in the IRC channel can mention whether it works with AMD cards. I just don't know. I don't have any AMD kit. Sorry. Okay, next question is from Nightmare. He says, the Linux community gives Canonical and Ubuntu a lot of stick about their involvement or lack thereof in the development of Linux. What innovations or technologies has Ubuntu used from other projects recently? I'm not sure I understand that.
There's one way to answer it. If you have a look at just the number of packages in Ubuntu, there's like 30 or 40,000. That should give you a good idea of how many projects were adopted by Ubuntu. What Ubuntu always, that's at least how I read the question, what Ubuntu always did was to integrate the best of open source software and make it available, and that's what we've been doing since 11 years, based on the great work of Debian, who did the same thing. So I think it's very hard to mention even the most important ones. It's just
right, and I could pick off like 2 or 3, for example, on the phone that are different from the ones that are on the desktop, which are different from those that are on the server. So I'll give you an example from each. Right, we contribute to Qt upstream on the phone. We contribute to GNOME on the desktop, and things like LXC and LXD on the server. In the future, all of those will be everywhere, but if you think of those separations for now. So yeah, there is some contribution, but I tend not to get too worried about the negative things people say. Next question is from Puka, or Puka, I don't know how you pronounce that, who says, I just installed Ubuntu on my VirtualBox. The main OS is Windows 10. It's my first time to see Linux OS. Some tips to learn. What is terminal? What do I do with it? That's a good question. It's funny when someone is like new to Linux and says, what should I do? I'm new to it. My part of me thinks it was a long time ago that I was new to Linux, and I'm trying to think back, what I was excited by the terminal back then, 12 years ago or however long it was. I was excited by the terminal. I was excited about things like being able to remotely run programs using, Remote X or something like, or VNC or whatever at the time. And that kind of stuff I found exciting. And then it moved on to, actually, can I use this thing? And I think that is the best thing to do, is to just use it. I wouldn't, a lot of the time people say, here are the best 10 things to do after you've installed Linux, or these are the 10 best things you should check out on Linux. I would say just do what you normally do. Whatever it is you normally use your Windows machine for, try doing that on a Linux machine, rather than try and orchestrate some scenario that you might do on Linux. Just do what you normally do. So, on my Windows machine, I used to play a lot of games, and now a lot of those I can now play on Linux. So, I now have Steam on both, so I can play those games on Steam. In my spare time, I make silly little computer games, and some of that I did on Windows with Windows tools. And now there are tools on Linux that let me do that, like Unity 3D and GDevelop and Godot and loads of others. So really, it's up to you. It's not something that anyone else can say you should do this with Linux. I just think, do whatever you do with a computer, personally. What do you think, Daniel?
Yeah, I was just looking on the Ubuntu and XFCE site for a tour or something, and the tour, it exists. You can just look it up and see if you get some inspiration that way. But basically what Poppy said, if you really try to use it, I don't know, write a letter and print it out and I don't know, go to your favorite websites and then make all the stuff work you normally do. You're very easily going to learn, this is the way how I would do it on Ubuntu, and that's it. And the great thing is that Ubuntu and all the other flavors of Ubuntu, they come with a great community. So if you should run into problems, you will find somebody to talk to very easily.
And the really handy thing about doing it in VirtualBox on your Windows install is that you don't mess up your Windows install. So it's not like anything's going to be a catastrophe. And with VirtualBox, you can take a snapshot of what the system looks like. So you can do your install, do all your updates, then take a snapshot, and then you can muck about with it to your heart's content. And if you mess it up, you can just revert in VirtualBox back to the previous snapshot, and your system suddenly starts working again. And so you can basically break it if you really want to. All those things about what happens if I run this command, you don't have to feel worried about it, because it's not your main machine. It is in a VirtualBox. Maybe in the future, once you've played with it a lot more and you feel more confident, maybe you'll migrate your main machine or a second laptop or something like that across. But just use it how you would normally use it.
Cool. Another question from Putin. How do you install apps on Ubuntu with Mir session? When click install, not installing.
So yeah, that's tricky.
Do you have to set up the Ubuntu One account, or what? How does it work?
Well, the question, how do you install apps on Ubuntu with a Mir session? So that's assuming Unity 8 and Mir. There is an app store, and in that app store there are a small number of applications. And because the app store is mostly focused on the phone at the moment, most of them are phone-related apps, and many of them are built for the phone chipset, ARM-HF, and not built for desktop chipsets like Intel and AMD x86 compatible. And so if you look in the store on a desktop running Unity 8 and Mir, if you open the app scope and open the store and sign in with your Ubuntu One account, you might actually find there's a very even smaller number of apps available for you to use. If there's any in particular you do need, which are on the phone, we can maybe make a desktop build available in the store. That's certainly possible. We've done that with some of the apps. So, for example, the file manager, there's a ARM-HF and an AMD64 build. From the command line, you should be able to use pkcon to install apps. We generally don't install apps using click directly. Use pkcon, install local, allow untrusted, and then the name of the click package. That's the way I do it anyway. I wouldn't use click to install. But I have seen some bugs about not being able to install click on the desktop, and I think those are app armor related. So yeah, it could just be a bug that you're experiencing.
Okay. Law asks, are there any Intel tablets that lend themselves to running Ubuntu Personal? Perhaps it's something that could have a compatibility list installation guide.
Yeah, I keep my eye out for Intel-based tablets as well. I have one on my desk right here, and I would love to be able to install Ubuntu on there. Part of the problem is it's difficult getting past the fact that they need to be rooted, and depending upon what OS is already on them, I'm led to believe that ones that run Android out of the box are generally harder. Intel tablets that run Android out of the box are harder to get non-Android OSs running on them, whereas Windows-based tablets, like some of the Dells and some others, some of the cheaper ones, are more easily coerced into booting Ubuntu, and that you can install Ubuntu on. But then there's still issues of Wi-Fi drivers and stuff like that. So yeah, I don't have a good answer for you there, and I would like for it to be possible to just have a USB stick that you could boot on an Intel tablet and and go. And actually that would be really quite cool. I know I know Will Cook has one. While you answer the next question, I'll ping Will and find out what Intel tablet he has and then tell you what it is.
Good thinking. Another option would be like more and more laptops have touch capabilities. So if you have one of those lying around or can easily install a recent version of Ubuntu on it and have Unity 8 running there, is also a good way to test things. Yeah. Another question from Putin. What is the difference between stable, RC proposed, and devil channel, and how to change channel? Basically, the channels are there for what their names say. So the release team tries to only put stable changes to the stable channel, and the other changes have less QA steps before them. So RC proposed is what lands after all the automated tests have been run, but as far as I know, they don't have all the manual tests run by the QA team. Is that right?
Some do. Actually, yeah, they do. Some of them do require manual testing. So they do go through QA. So yes, so we have a stable channel. So if you went out and bought an Ubuntu phone right now, it would be on the stable channel, and you would get an update every 6 weeks or thereabouts. If you were to change channel and switch to the RC proposed, then RC proposed means release candidate, and proposed means somewhere it's a proposed image that may become a stable image in the future. And we crank one of those out every day, sometimes twice a day, often not at weekends. And those images contain all the things that landed since the last image. So, for example, last Friday, there was a bunch of updates to a number of things, like the system settings was updated, Unity 8 was updated, and Mia was updated. So those things had bug fixes and new features land. Those things go into either the main Ubuntu archive or a PPA, and then though the archive and the PPA are consumed in the creation of a new image for the phone. And so if you're running a phone with the RC proposed channel, then overnight, when that image is finished being made, you get a little notification that says there's a new system update available, and you tap the button and you get a new update. And that happens every day, sometimes twice a day, with all the things that are new since yesterday. And then after about 6 weeks, we do a full round of testing on the whole image. So everything's tested as it lands. So those system settings in Unity 8 and Mia that were updated on Friday will have been tested. But then there's another final round of testing before we say that that image is good and that can go out. And that's when you see Lucas, who sends out his daily emails to the Ubuntu phone list, sends out an update that says, right, we've pushed out an update to the stable channel. And so those people who've got a retail phone will then get the same kind of notification, but they've got batched up all the updates that happen in the 6 weeks, like between. It's a bit like running Ubuntu, an Ubuntu release and then updating it like 6 months later. You know, you get all the updates that happened in the 6 months in between one release and the next. Right. Whereas if you stick on the development release, then you get all the updates drip fed to you throughout that 6 month period. There is also a channel which is based on Wiley or Xenial, but we don't recommend anyone uses that. So the only two channels we generally recommend is stable and the RC proposed.
Yeah, and I'll just share the link on IRC. If you go to developer Ubuntu.com, start, then Ubuntu for devices, then image channels, you're going to get a long explanation along with a nice diagram and instructions for how to change channels. It's all on that page.
And going back to Netlaw's question about Intel tablets, I just pinged Will, and he said the tablet he was using was the Acer Aspire P3. And you may have seen Will Cook is the desktop team lead, and he's made a few videos. If you find Will Cook on YouTube, you'll find him. And he's made a couple of videos about showing off Unity 8 and Mia running on an Intel device. And I think it was the Acer Aspire P3 he was using. So we kind of know that works. Okay. Luca has another question. Is it worse or better for a beginner on Ubuntu 14.04? I have Python version 2.7 to update to Python 3. I'm a beginner and Python is my first programming language. Ooh. So
Python 3 should be available on 14.04 as well. You just might have to additionally install it. If you want all your code to be future-proof, use Python 3. Just do it.
And we're planning to move to Python 3 only in 16.04. I mean, we keep saying that we're going to at some point, but I think the plan was to move to it in.
Going to get it off the desktop image.
Right. So that would mean if you'd written some stuff in 14.04 now, and you'd based it around Python 2.7, and then you upgraded to 16.04, maybe your scripts need tweaking to make them work on 16.04 because that's Python 3 by default. But probably Python 2.7 would be in the archive still. It just wouldn't be in the default image, right?
Yeah.
Right.
But now it doesn't make sense if you write new code for it not to be Python 3.
Right. I guess the only thing is if you're following tutorials or guides that were written for Python 2.7. So maybe try and find Python 3 equivalents to those guides.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
Putin asked, when will Ubuntu phones have the new kernel and new Ubuntu version? 16.04 maybe.
So that's a good question. So there's two separate questions there. New kernel is harder to do, but easier to answer. We're kind of tied to the kernel that is required for the Android drivers, remember that while these things are running Ubuntu, there is a container that has the Android drivers in it for things like the GPS, the Wi-Fi, and other sensors, and anything that needs a binary blob or an Android specific driver. And we're kind of tied to that kernel version. So while we can backport fixes and bug fixes and security updates to that kernel, we can't easily just say, right, on the BQ, let's go to Linux kernel 4.2. We just can't do that, because that would mean trying to forward port a whole bunch of stuff that probably won't work or won't build against that kernel or won't work with that kernel. So we're kind of stuck. So some of the devices are running kernel 3.4, I think, and some of them are running 3.10. But that's what we got from the hardware vendor. So that would be BQ or Meizu. That's the kernel we got from them. So that's the kernel question. The are we going to update to 1604 question? So phones are delivered on a different cadence than the desktop. So the desktop cadence is every 6 months, as you know, 1504, 1510, 1604. Phones come out and land like interweaved with that cycle. They don't, if we went to Meizu or BQ and said, what's the next phone we're going to ship, and then say to them, let's ship it on, April the 23rd when 1604 comes out, or whatever date it is, that might not line up with their marketing and their manufacturing. So, we have to be a bit more flexible about what software we deliver and when it has to line up with our releases, because it doesn't line up with the desktop release at all, really. So what we've got on the phones at the moment is actually Vivid, which is 1504, plus what's called an overlay PPA. And the overlay PPA has all the new stuff that we can't put in the Vivid archive, because Vivid is frozen when Vivid came out. So what you've got on the phone is actually built from 1504 plus a whole load of packages that came after 1504 that came in a PPA. So we probably won't go to 1604. We'll carry on doing that with Vivid and the PPA. And then sometime next year, I expect we will move forward to, I don't know whether it'll be 1604 or the next release. I don't know which. Not my decision. I hope that makes sense. Cool. Next question is from Ubuntu Fun DE. When can we expect the first commercial Ubuntu phone that supports convergence, and who will be the partner? You can expect that probably, I think, next year. And the partner is BQ. We've already announced that. So we've already said the first partner for converged devices, BQ.
Woohoo!
Yeah. So if you want to test out the converged stuff, you can go and pick up a second-hand Nexus 4. They're not currently sold at the moment, but if you want to play with it and develop on it or for it, then go and get yourself a Nexus 4, and we crank out an image every day, and you'll find the updates. Deliver new magical convergence stuff all the time. But if you want to wait for an actual device, then yeah, not this year, next year.
Nightmare asked, how is Ubuntu Phone faring in China and India? Has there been good adoption?
Short answer, I don't know. I have no idea of sales numbers. I don't have any idea of sales numbers anywhere in the world. So singling out China or India is even harder, because I don't know any. But I think there was a question about sales numbers that if you go back to Jane's Q&A, and I think Mark addressed this as well when people were talking about, are we okay with the sales numbers? At the moment, Ubuntu for phones is very much an enthusiast platform, a developer platform. We're not selling it in retail outlets, in shops in the high street, in major Western countries where people might walk in, buy the phone, thinking I can use everything I normally use on my current phone, and then get disappointed and find out they can't, and end up taking it back to the shop. That would be a worse experience for everybody involved. The person who bought the phone would have a bad experience. The shop would hate us for them getting the returns. We wouldn't like that, and so we're working slowly, and we'll get there. We will get there, but yeah, I don't think sales numbers or lack thereof are a massively important issue for us right now.
Yeah. Now, just thinking back to the previous online summit, we had a chat with the founder of BQ, and he said he was just generally super happy with how everything went, like how people received, how the phone was received, the interaction with the Ubuntu community and everything else. So I think that's more important than numbers right now.
Right. And the fact that BQ, came to us and said we want to do another phone, and then came to us and said they want to do a converged device, and now they're selling their phones in India as well, where they previously weren't, and next week they're going to start selling their phones in Russia, where they previously weren't, kind of tells a story to me that they're happy people. So, keeping them happy is way better than us producing huge sales numbers, As long as the partner's happy and Mark and Jane are happy, I'm happy.
Cool.
The next question is from Putin. Some people install apps on their phones using apt-get. Is it safe? If not, is there any safe way to use apt-get install? Well, it kind of depends on your definition of safe. If you make your phone read write and then you do apt-get install cow say, it's not going to burn your house down or eat your cats or anything like that. So it's relatively speaking, on the grand scale of things, it's safe. However, we never test that. So our QA only ever test the read-only image and the OTA updates and the click packages. We only ever test that scenario. So as soon as you make your phone read write and apt-get install stuff, you're going off-piste and going down a path that we never test. And so if it does fail, like for example, it pulls in a package that causes the phone no longer to boot, or maybe installing one package causes loads of other packages to be removed, which causes it not to boot, or you get no display or something, then you get to keep all the pieces. And you can get out of that problem by reflashing your phone. So you can, it's not like, I've not heard of anyone who has, for want of a better word, bricked their phone by doing this. They're mildly inconvenienced by doing this if it breaks and they have to reflash their phone. But that's part of, going off piste and doing something a little bit crazy with your phone. But it is your phone. And if you want to do that, knock yourself out. Shimmer asks, is there a top-level cooperation support involving Canonical and Mycroft? At UOS, Ryan Sipes sounded hopeful that things would work out, but it seems like Canonical should be working hard to get such a promising AI working on the phone and desktop as a first-class citizen. So I think this is tricky because, Ryan and the Mycroft guys are working hard to deliver a product to their customers. And I think they would love to see the integration of some of the things that they've developed on Ubuntu desktop. But we also are busy developing things for our customers. That's, you Ubuntu users and Ubuntu phone purchasers. I'm sure that we would accept appropriate contributions into the desktop if they fit with our design and they fit with the coding standards and they can fit in the archive, then that would be awesome. I don't know that we have a huge amount of resource that we could allocate to, helping Mycroft. I know the Mycroft guys have spoken to people in Canonical and, I don't know that there's any more that we could do really. I'd love to hear from the Mycroft guys if there is anything more we could do, and if they need any help, we'll do what we can. Or if there's community people who want to help, I'm sure they'd love that as well. Next question is from Sali. Is there any way I can run my applications or software from the terminal? Need more detail, I think. Is that a phone-related question? In which case, yes, I think you can. I mean, on the desktop, yeah, you open a terminal, you type the command, and it works. On the phone, it's a little bit different. There's a program called Ubuntu App Launch, and Ubuntu App Launch can be used to launch applications from the command line. It has a couple of command line parameters. One of them is the app ID, and there's another parameter where you point to the desktop file so that it can pick up the icon and other parameters from the desktop file. But yeah, Ubuntu App Launch if you're doing this on the phone.
And the next question was a bit of a meta question. It was how we figured out if a question was concerning use on the phone or use on the desktop. And we applied our best guess. Like if you want to re-ask your question or get it re-answered, depending on the other use case, bring it.
Netlaw asks, have you considered asking people to clarify their question? Is that the one you just... okay.
Dragonbite asked, how does or will Canonical earn money with the Ubuntu phone?
Not my department. I make free software. I don't know, but I would envisage similar ways to the ways in which other companies make money with selling hardware devices with partners. I'm sure you could use your imagination and figure that out. But I personally don't know the details, but I'd imagine it's like any other platform.
Yeah, that was answered in ISC the same way.
Oh, good.
Like what we do with OEMs, for example, is that there's what's it called, a per unit device fee something, and it's probably something similar.
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, next question. I'm kind of lost now.
I think we're done with the first batch of questions. Yeah.
Is that all of them?
Yep.
Can we go home now? I am home. Yeah. Yeah, so you don't have to save your questions up for this week. Daniel and myself are always around. I'm sorry, my cat was just on my lap and I've got fur up my nose, which is why I keep rubbing my nose. Daniel and I are around on IRC and the community team mailing list and everything all the time. So if you're watching this after the event, then feel free to ping us if you have any questions, or feel free to save them up for next time and hit us with them next week. We do this every week at 4 o'clock UTC. It kind of moved a bit due to daylight savings, but 4 o'clock UTC. It's either myself, Daniel, or other members of the community team, maybe Dave Planella, David Calais, Mike Hall, or Nick Skaggs. We kind of rotate it around a little bit.
Here's the last question for today. What's the name of your cat?
That one is Salem, and if you really want to, you could follow him on Twitter. Let me get his Twitter account. It's at Salem Pope is his handle on Twitter. So yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah, has a Twitter account.
Somehow I'm not surprised.
Yeah, that's true. So if there's no other questions, we can wrap up, I think. I don't think we have any questions to go back to. But we'll give it just a minute, because sometimes we say we're going to wrap up now and then people throw a bunch of questions in at the last minute. So feel free to throw those in while we're babbling.
Netlaw is asking, is the migration from Click to Snappy for the phone progressing?
Oh, that's a good question, and that's one for you, Daniel.
Yes, it is. As I said, we had a session about this at UOS. I don't know the exact time frame, but there is a plan. Requirements are known, and people are working on it. So I can't tell you if it's days, weeks, or months. I don't know.
Well, it's not days. I'm pretty sure of that. It's
I mean,
probably not
many
weeks.
days.
Yeah, numerous days. Yeah, I think I saw members of the Snappy team talking about it being, you know, sometime next year, probably around about 1604 release, that kind of thing. And that seems more reasonable than, you know, any time now.
Cool. There was just somebody who asked about Ubuntu phones in India, and I just gave them the link. So Snapdeal has a whole site dedicated to Ubuntu, ubuntu.snapdeal.com. Have a look there, and I think with that we can start now.
And if you've bought an Ubuntu phone, you know, we love hearing your feedback. We really do. We have a number of bugs reported already. So if you feel that something is not working correctly, or something is crashing or whatever, then let us know. I frequently get messages on Telegram or SMS messages from people telling me, "Hey Alan, this is broken." And often my reply is, just a URL to a known bug we have that we're tracking that particular issue. And as time goes on, remember I talked about the updates that we're delivering over time. We're plowing through those bug lists and landing new features like the convergence stuff that landed a couple of weeks ago, but also bug fixes, battery improvements, GPS improvements, Wi-Fi improvements, all kinds of stuff like that that are landing over time. So, I would say be patient, and we know it's not perfect. We know there are bugs in it, and the good news is you can see that list of bugs and you can contribute if you want to, whether that is contributing log files from an application that crashed, or screenshots of things that don't line up properly, or font sizes that are wrong or something. We welcome all that kind of feedback, because without our enthusiasts and developers out there playing with these things, we just couldn't get to where we are. So we're really, really grateful for those people who have invested some time and effort in getting an Ubuntu phone and playing with it.
Excellent.
Cool.
All right. Thanks everyone for your questions, and we're going to see, or somebody else is going to see you next week.
Yeah, it might be us. Might be us again. Who knows? Might be another one of those crazy American holidays where
That's right.
Working again.
All right.
Awesome. Thanks everyone. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay. Bye.
See you later.